Welcome to the world of curiosities. Do you believe that we've seen the Titanic, yet we've never truly uncovered the whole truth about the ship's most mysterious and forgotten section? New footage has revealed a secret hidden for over 100 years, and it completely changes what we thought we knew about the disaster. Exclusive new images of the Titanic have just been released, and without a doubt, they're the best ever captured. When the very first photos of the famous wreck appeared back in September 1985, the world literally stopped. Millions of people were glued to their TVs, watching the return of one of the most legendary ships in history after more than 70 years lost in the deep. And for those still wondering where the Titanic sank, it lies about 400 miles off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. Now, with this new visual revelation, researchers believe they can finally analyze never-before-seen details of the hull's deterioration. The images have also reignited global fascination with the ship, sparking new theories and discoveries about its final moments. The unsinkable ship rests in complete darkness at approximately 3,840 meters below the surface. Yes, the Titanic is really that deep. Even after its massive plunge to the ocean floor, the front section, the famous bow, remains surprisingly well preserved. You can still see railings, anchor chains, and the elegant curves of the hull, just like in the old photographs. But at the time, almost no one talked about the stern, and there's a reason for that. Those early images weren't just haunting, they finally revealed what truly happened on that tragic night. After decades, we were beginning to get real answers about the 1912 disaster that took more than 1,600 lives. For the first time, the timeline of the catastrophe felt tangible, no longer buried beneath speculation and conflicting testimonies. The ocean had held its secrets tightly, but those images marked the moment it began to loosen its grip. The new details allowed researchers to reconstruct the exact sequence of damage that caused the ship to break in two. For the first time, they could trace each moment of structural failure, almost like rewinding the disaster frame by frame. These revelations brought researchers closer than ever to understanding what truly happened on that freezing April morning. Every fragment captured seemed to fill another gap in a mystery that has haunted generations for more than a century. Piece by piece, the silent clues scattered across the ocean floor began to form a clearer picture of the ship's final moments. It was as if the deep sea itself was slowly returning answers it had guarded since 1912. And before you search how many people survived the Titanic, I'll tell you now, 706 survived. Among them, some swore they saw the ship split in half as it sank. Others insisted it went down in one piece. Investigators ultimately agreed with the second version. For 73 years, official reports stated that the Titanic sank intact. That remained the story until the wreck was filmed on the ocean floor. The images revealed the truth. Yes, the ship did break apart during the sinking. And if we found the bow, then the stern should be somewhere nearby, right? Well, not exactly. The stern was found, but about 600 meters away from the bow, lying on the seabed. And hardly anyone talks about it because, unlike the bow, the stern is completely destroyed. While the front of the ship still resembles a vessel, the stern looks like a twisted heap of metal. Only the strongest components, the propellers, engines, and rudder, maintain any recognizable shape. Everything else has collapsed into debris across the ocean floor. The once grand structures that defined the ship have been reduced to tangled remnants, barely hinting at their original form. What remains is a chaotic graveyard of twisted metal, scattered like silent witnesses to the ship's final end. To understand why it ended up in such a state, we need to go back to that icy morning of April 15th, 1912. Hours before the tragedy, everything seemed normal. The Titanic crossed the North Atlantic, and the stern was full of life. Families talking, music playing, people enjoying themselves. That part of the ship held the third-class cabins, also known as steerage. But the stern wasn't just home to passengers, it also contained huge storage rooms, luggage spaces, kitchens, crew quarters, and vital engineering sections. Keep that in mind, it matters. When the Titanic hit the iceberg and began sinking from the front, the stern slowly rose into the air. This put enormous pressure on the middle of the ship. Around 2 a.m., the lights flickered and went out. Seconds later, the Titanic split in two. The bow sank quickly, while the stern briefly settled back onto the water before rising almost vertically. It hung there for a few seconds, then began its final descent. At 2:20 a.m., the stern vanished into the Atlantic. The Titanic was gone. But what happened underwater were two completely different stories. The bow descended slowly, filling with water and sinking almost like a submarine. That's why much of its structure remains intact. The stern, however, faced a far more violent fate. It broke into multiple segments, scattering debris across a vast area of the ocean floor. The extreme forces ripped the rear section apart, leaving it almost unrecognizable. When the ship split, the stern was left wide open. Water rushed in with massive force, making that section plunge far faster than the bow. The turbulence tore huge pieces of the structure away. And remember those internal compartments filled with air? Many of them created air pockets trapped inside the sinking wreck. As the stern descended, the ocean's crushing pressure began to compress those pockets until they imploded. The destruction was catastrophic. Fragments of the ship, furniture, metal structures, personal belongings, everything was blasted across the ocean floor. That's why many experts believe the pressure itself destroyed most of the stern, and that's why so little of it remains today. Now you understand why the Titanic's rear is rarely discussed. There's almost nothing left of it. It's like the most tragic and unrecognizable chapter of the ship's history. And unfortunately, the same fate awaits the bow. Yes, the bow is still recognizable today, but it's deteriorating more every year. The iconic front of the ship is weakening, and one day it will vanish completely. Down there, the Titanic faces pressure nearly 400 times greater than at the surface. The good news is that there are no more air pockets, so no further implosions will occur. The bad news is that the ship's own weight is destroying it. Each passing year, the massive steel structure sinks deeper into the seabed, twisting and collapsing under its own pressure. What was once a symbol of human ambition is now slowly folding in on itself, piece by piece, as the ocean claims what remains. The 52,000 tons of steel are slowly collapsing into the seabed, bending and stressing the structure. Submersibles have already identified huge cracks in the hull and entire sections of the deck caving in. Every new expedition reveals even more signs of weakness spreading through the ship like fractures in ancient bone. It's a silent reminder that even the grandest creations of mankind cannot withstand the relentless force of time and the deep sea. And there's more. That ghostly appearance of the ship, it's caused by a thick layer of bacteria and microbes. The problem? Those bacteria are eating the Titanic. Most of the corrosion comes from microorganisms that continuously weaken the structure. Plates, beams, and supports grow thinner every year. Scientists estimate that the ship loses between 0.13 and 0.22 tons of iron per day. Even at that pace, the process isn't fast. Some estimates suggest the Titanic could take up to 420 years to completely disappear. Yet every decade brings visible changes, proving that the ship's final form is already dissolving into myth. Future generations may only know the Titanic through images and scans, long after the deep sea has erased the last trace of its existence. Since the first underwater photos were taken, a lot has already changed. Railings have vanished, ceilings have collapsed, details have eroded. What once seemed frozen in time is now fading faster than anyone expected, piece by piece dissolving into the darkness. Each missing detail is a reminder that the Titanic is not just a wreck, it's a slowly disappearing chapter of history. That's why so many expeditions are working to capture images, videos, and 3D scans before the ocean erase what's left forever. It's our way of preserving the